turns off without your Deathrite Shaman, basically.
Yeah. All right, so mulling open the 7. I think both players have decided to keep. Mike going to start us off here, fetch himself down to 19. I think we're likely to see a Deathrite here. He might have a Ponder, but oh no, I guess he's going to start with Ponder. So pretty good heads-up move here by Mike. He's going to get a basic island. I think that's a Guru Island, too. Good choice. So that he's not going to get Price of Progress later. What's that?
Use white borders.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, long live the white border.
No, yeah, definitely, like, me being the terrible person I am, I was playing against my opponent earlier, and we were, like, some of the bottom tables because I wasn't doing so hard in that part of the Swiss, and I fetched out. And I was like, you're not going to waste on me. Like, I was just talking out loud. I can get a non-basic. And I was like, wait, no, those come at a price. And then
yeah.
So the island 2 is pretty smart. I mean, it makes his hand a little awkward because he is 3 colors. But did you get to go look at his hand? Do we have a Deathrite Shaman, which is going to help everything, of course.
Yeah, of course. But he does need to get it into play. What basics does Kravitz actually have access to? I see he has an island and a swamp. So interesting decision on his part to get the island so that instead of getting a swamp that he can cast Deathrite Shaman. This leads me to believe that he has an additional fetch land in his hand.
Right.
Charlie gonna follow it up with a bit of a slow start out of burn.
So he's actually on 2 Lavamancers in the main, which means he's trying to go for a little bit more consistent, longer game. It's going to be interesting because obviously Deathrite Shaman, if left unchecked, can be one of the best cards against decks like this. So you have to get it off the table immediately.
Yeah.
And because he didn't play it on turn 1, that Grim Lavamancer is basically threatening to activate and kill it if he plays into it.
Also, Grim Lavamancer is pretty neat tech against Deathrite Shaman in that if they can't target stuff out of your graveyard because you can remove it from the game in response and counter the ability.
Which means that they don't get the what's it called?
The life gain or the
right,
life
it's
loss.
It's not a cost, it's part of the resolution of the spell, and if the spell doesn't have a target...
Exactly. So Mike going to follow it up with another Ponder. He might be looking for... I'm actually curious what he's looking for. I do see an Underground Sea in his hand.
Just looking at the sideboards here, they got some interesting cards here, like Volcanic Fallout.
Yeah, it's a pretty interesting one. I like it a lot against Pyromancer decks.
Yeah.
Because they're often going to be flush with counter magic, but you also need to clear a bunch of creatures.
Yeah, well, I mean, it looks like he came here also. Like he's ready to beat Miracles on Exquisite Firecrafts and Searing Bloods. Yeah,
Charlie is no stranger to the competitive scene. He is very much looking to metagame, and that's ultimately what you got to do. You got to beat. You don't need to beat everything. You just need to beat what you play against.
Right.
All right, so Mike did find a Polluted Delta, going to fetch out his Swamp.
So he's now out of basics, but he is going to try and stay on this and make those Price of Progress as bad as possible. He's obviously going to play a few more non-basics from here, but this way he's avoiding a pinch at 4 points of burn. This is an Eidolon of the Great Revel coming down. If this resolves or stays on the table for too long, that is bad news.
Yeah, there's not a whole lot in these bug lists that are going to be costing more than 3.
And I believe that he has 2 cards in his deck that do, and they're 2 Jaces. We're going to see
another Fatal Push
right.
rolling right off the top.
And he is going to be domed for 2 for that. Hopefully they didn't miss that trigger.
Nah, it seems like they got it.
Yeah.
Whoops.
Fatal Push really kind of pushing these bug lists over the edge too. Looks like Kravitz is on 3, ready to take down creatures in the game 1. I see a lot of people maybe on 1 or 2. What just got played? Is that a...
All right, that is a Flame Rift.
So it's
so
gonna hit both players for 4.
best deal in Magic. Pay 2, deal 8.
Well, I mean, I think that it was out of favor for a long time, and then recently Pat Solly, he top 8 at an event, and I remember he was top 8 or top 16, and now everybody is back on the Flame Rift love.
We might have to talk about what I think I just saw Kravitz draw.
Was it a Kolaghan's Command or a Painful Truth?
I thought I saw Hydroblast, but it's on his list. No, then it can't be.
Right. So he looks like he snapped, and he snapped back
a Fatal Push.
Yeah.
Get that.
He can't let a
off the
Lavamancer
table.
resolve because it can basically kill every creature he has and take down his Planeswalkers, so he's going to need to get those off the table if we're going to make it 1 position. His 1 of Painful Truth is really awkward in this matchup.
Oh, geez. Gonna Fire Blast you.
Oh, man.
And that'll get the game. All right, we're going to go to game 2. Charlie picking up game 1. Let's talk about the sideboards a little bit. What does Charlie have on his sideboard for this matchup?
All right, so a couple of things that we might look at. So he might bring in those Smash and Smithereens, but that's unlikely. Depends on what he thinks his opponent's going to do. There is a chance that Mike could bring in Pide Needle type effects. But remember that we do have deck lists, and there are the only artifacts in Kravitz sideboard appear to be one of Engineered Explosive. So we're gonna not likely to Smash come in. Searing Blood seems really good in this matchup.
Yeah, I
because
like that a lot.
It kills all of Kravitz's creatures. How do you like the Sulfuric Vortex?
Sulfuric Vortex is interesting. Most of the time, I see it coming against Miracle's list, but I imagine decks that are really soft to consistent damage and enchantments it's going to be good. And so I think in this matchup is where you're looking to bring it in.
And so I think also though, because remember the stop 8, so players do have deck lists, correct?
Mm-hmm.
So we're going to see that he can look at his opponent's list and see that in terms of what he can answer Sulfuric Vortex, he has 2 Abrupt Decay in the main, 1 in the side. The one in the side might come in, I'm assuming it does, and an Engineered Explosive. So he might also just be willing to take the bet of, hey, you know,
yeah,
it's going to stay on the table.
I'm curious how much. I'm curious how much Charlie is looking to change up his game plan. So, out of the main board, Burn is very much a creature-oriented deck. What with Eidolons,
Goblin Guides,
Swift
he's on Lavamancers.
And Lavamancers.
Do you think he's going to take the Lavamancers out?
So I think I don't know about Lavamancer. I think that's probably the best creature, but he might
Lavamancers gonna let him grind.
He might cut something like Swift Spear in favor of Exquisite Fireclass, because these bug lists are very good at killing creatures, but they're not great at countering lots of burn spells. And so if he can just inundate Mike with an absurd amount of burn, he might be able to get through better than having a bunch of creatures that can get Fatal Push.
So you want to talk about some sideboard tech real quick? I'd like to point out that we do have a 1 of Invasive Surgery in Kravitz's sideboard.
Ooh, that is spicy.
Right, and the Thought Seizes are probably going to come in too, because even though you take 2 damage, it's basically like you're gaining a life.
Yeah, exactly. So if you pay 2 life to take a Lightning Bolt out of their hand, you still save a life, and I mean sometimes you get
Vortex or a Firecraft, like getting a Fire Blast, you basically just.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Yeah, and it's so bad to be like, oh yeah, you got a healing salve, but sometimes you need one, you know.
So let's take a look at Kravitz's sideboard. Mike has 1 Abrupt Decay, 2 Diabolic Edict, 1 Engineered Explosives, 1 Fatal Push, 1 Flusterstorm, 1 Invasive Surgery, 1 Leovold, 2 Pyroblast, 2 Surgical Extraction, 2 Thoughtseize, 1 Vandalia Click. Personally, I like the Abrupt Decay coming in here. Your opponent's likely to bring in Sulfuric Vortex, but also the creatures are really problematic. And by that same token, I like the Engineered Explosives.
I think Engineered Explosives is one of those cards. You know, it is a 1-of, but he can obviously brainstorm, try and find it. That's one of the strengths of this deck, is that you can't play those 1-of. And the games it's going to be relevant, it's going to be really big, because it's going to be hitting stuff like potentially a Sulfuric Vortex. He's going to be hitting multiple creatures potentially.
Exactly.
You know, if he just lets his opponent and plays into Grim Lavamancers and Goblin Guides, he can get a 2-for-1. And although like the value plan isn't exactly where you want to be against Burn, sometimes if you can just get them on no cards in hand in a top deck scenario with force backup, you're probably going to win that game. Yeah,
and by that same token, as much as I like the idea of bringing in Abrupt Decay and Engineers Explosives, I think this fourth copy of Fatal Push might stay on the sideboard. Your opponent's probably looking to remove some of their creatures, in that you have a ton of removal. So while Abrupt Decay and Engineered Explosives can hit some of their non-creatures, like Sulfuric Vortex and shoot, I forgot the other one. Like Sulfuric Vortex, the Fatal Push only is going to hit the creatures, so it's going to be a little weaker. I do like the Flusterstorm. Love the Invasive Surgery. Other than that, I don't think we're going to see anything else. Oh, and probably the Thought Seizes.
Is the Invasive Surgery ever Surgical's one out of Charlie's hands while it's like in the graveyard? That's just going to be ridiculous.
Oh, remember, Invasive Surgery is actually a counter-target sorcery spell. And then if you have
right,
and
so
then
if
you have Delirium,
respond to it, that's the thing.
Yeah,
so if you're stuck, if potentially, if he's going to try and double Fire Blast, you can just rip the other Fire Blast out of his hand.
Or remember, again, I see what you're saying.
You can basically end up gaining potentially like up to 8 life. That's the dream scenario. Mm-hmm. But usually it's just going to like make, because Burn is a deck of redundancy, right? So
yeah, every card is basically the same.
They all are just. He's going to vault you 7 times. That's the plan.
Yeah,
and
6. People talk about this every now and again, but Burn is unofficially a combo deck. It looks like it's an aggro deck because it's beating you down with creatures, but at the end of the day, they go, I'm going to cast these 7 spells. It doesn't really matter what they are, but as long as I cast 7 spells, I win this game.
Right. And it's kind of like, okay, ad nauseum, they cast 10 spells. Or like Ant or Test, they'll cast 10 spells, and Tendrils use some of the 10. Sometimes they have to Warrens or whatever for Test, but it's almost like the same thing. It's like you hit the storm count you need to. You just hit it over 5 turns instead of 1 turn.
Yeah, exactly.
That being said, it's a little bit more easy to interact with because it's not coming all at once. Like anything that's going to gain you life or counter those spells is going to end up being really impactful in the Burn matchup. So we don't know what they're bringing in, so we'll see that in this game. I think the Leo Volt's going to stay on the sideboard. It's too slow, too clunky. Even though he's going to be drawing cards anytime his opponent bolts him, I don't think that's where he wants to be in this matchup.
Yeah, a 3-mana creature is probably not what you want. You just need to deal with your opponent's spells. I expect we'll see this interesting, painful truths in the main board come out also. That was a pretty interesting one. I was hoping to see how that would fare, but not in this matchup.
I just don't think you cast it even if you draw it. You're just going to try and brainstorm back on the deck. It's just in some matchups
you don't want to lose 3
against
life.
Miracles. If you ever resolve that spell, you're going to be a pretty good position. But against a deck like Burn, it's more important to conserve the life. Do you think that Charlie's bringing in this? So we're pretty much sure he's going to bring in the Searing Bloods.
Yeah.
The Exquisite Firecraft seem pretty easy to me. And then if I was him, I think I'm bringing out the Swift Spears. Potentially the Lava Spikes or Lava Spikes or Chain Lightning, some number of those. Or Rift Bolt. It depends on what he's trying to do.
Yeah, possibly. All right, so players are looking at their 7, mulling it over, deciding if they want to keep it. Charlie is all right. Kravitz is all right. We're going to see a fetch land. I expect Kravitz is going to find his island again here.
Do we get a look at his hand?
Okay. So he's going to get Underground Sea. If I'm in Charlie's seat, this seems to me like Mike's hand is color intensive. And so he probably doesn't have tons of options in terms of mana sources.
He could also
so he might be a little choked.
To hit his colors too, so he wants to make sure that if he somehow hits, let's say, a tropical island, he'll have access to black.
Exactly. So all right, so decided to keep with the Ponder, draw a card. I see 2 Abrupt Decays in his hand. Pretty interesting. And here comes the Grim Lavamancer from Charlie. Given that Charlie doesn't have any cards in his graveyard, yeah, I don't expect that Mike is going to fire off this Abrupt Decay until we get into the red zone. Oh, actually, just going to Fatal Push it.
Do you think there's a chance that Charlie's seen like the amount of creature hate and permanent destruction in Mike's deck in this game, especially going into Game 3? Is there a chance he just goes creatureless?
I think creatureless is going to be a little hard to accomplish given how many creatures Charlie has, but I think he's going to try to be as creatureless as possible.
You leave the Eidolons in no matter what, because because sometimes it's just like you just duress their removal spell and deal 2 to them. But
all right, now Mike is going to fetch out his island, keeping Price of Progress always in the back of his mind. And that's a cool thing too. If in this matchup, it isn't the case, but sometimes just the threat of Price of Progress for a lot of people means that you don't even have to have it in your deck anymore, and you can still.
Right. Well, that's why cards like Daze are so powerful, and back in the days in Splinter Twin and Modern, because your opponent always has to play like you have the Daze, because the time they just turn to counterbalance or something like that, that's the time that you're gonna get them. And so in this case, there's a potentially he sideboarded out against Bug. I think you're almost never gonna sideboard it out because Bug is a deck that definitely relies on having duels. It's one of the reasons why they're so weak to Blood Moon.
Yeah. So, interesting. We see a Searing Blood in Charlie's hand. He's going to fire that off on end step. Kravitz. Oh, we've got a reader.
Yeah, we're gonna get some reading there. For those of you at home, Searing Blood.
Spell Snare.
Oh wow, that's
get him.
Spicy tech. Searing Blood is red. You do some damage to a creature, and if it dies, you do some damage to their face. What do you want more than that?
Where do I sign? Where do I put my name on that one?
Yeah.
I believe Charlie has another copy of Searing Blood in his hand, and he's going to fire it off here.
It's interesting that he's on Searing Blood over
Searing Blaze.
Searing Blaze because usually you see that on lists that aren't running the Lavamancer plus fetch package. It might be because he's only on.
So that's the interesting thing. He's actually not on a lot of fetches.
Right, which is really interesting because he's Griv Lavamancer 3 fetches plus Searing Blood, and that provides a fairly unique combination of spells for Burn. We're gonna see Deathrite Shaman coming out again.
All right, so Searing Blood on the sack. Mike is thinking about how he wants to answer. All right,
this is the second Searing Blood for the record.
So going to take down the Deathrite Shaman, and that was pretty good timing from Charlie. So he just passed his turn.
What's that dice on top of his
Mike
representing?
Just to remind himself. Mike goes to crack his fetch land, which I missed life totals, and in response, Charlie fires off the Searing Blood. So he does it when his opponent has one land tapped and another one not in. So as many shields as were down as possible. Okay, so Mike did bring in the Leovold.
All right, we're gonna see how that works out for him here. It is. Do you throw any burn here at the Leovold here, Adam?
I can't claim to be a burn expert, but it very much depends on the nature of burn in your hand. So I see a Flame Rift and I believe an Eidolon of the Great Revel.
It seems like you're totally fine with
just leave it,
throwing
letting
out
it
the
be
Eidolon
there.
here.
Gonna
Oh, he's
cast a
leave on the
Flame Rift.
Okay.
Yeah, I think he doesn't want to cast Eidolon and then cast the Flame Rift.
Oh, right, because the life is relevant. I was thinking more that he'd like want to try and get out some mana here. It looks like in
The cool thing is also he's taking the opportunity when his opponent is tapped out to cast a 4 damage spell.
Right.
That is not incidentally doesn't target. So Mike isn't going to get to draw from that Leovold.
Which means that if he doesn't have the force, he's not going to get it.
All right, Mike going to take a draw. See what comes off the top. This is a Brainstorm.
And Leovold does say opponents cannot draw, so he's perfectly fine to fire this off here.
So he's going to cast a Snapcaster Mage.
What do you think is coming off this Snapcaster?
Probably the Ponder.
Seems like the most responsible because looks like right now he's just trying to filter through. He needs to get some shields up, otherwise he's just taking too much. He's on 7. He's a Bolt and a Fire Blast away from losing this game.
So here's a Force of Will with 2 cards that are moderately underwhelming. I suspect that Mike is going to take this just because of the importance of Force of Will. Like you said, a Fire Blast plus any burn spell can seal the game out.
Right. So if even though the 1 life does hurt, in reality you are getting a healing salve off gaining 3 there.
And I like playing the Snapcaster in main phase a lot also. Well, just casting the Snapcaster in general, because now you put your opponent on a 3-turn clock as opposed to a 6-turn clock with just Leovold.
Which also makes it a lot worse if your opponent's going to try and drop something like a Sulfuric Vortex, because there is a potential that you let it, so it hits you let it hit them, and then you can abrupt decay it based on your life total in the game state.
Right. Charlie doing a bit of thinking. Going to play Searing Blood, target, Snapcaster Mage. Mike remembers his Leovold trigger, draws a card. And it looks like he's going to Force of Will this Searing Blood.
Seems like an interesting pick. Did we get a chance to see what he drew off the top there?
It was a Ponder that he knew about, and I think that's what he exiled to the Force of Will also.
Okay. So he's going to untap here.
Draws the Volcanic Island he knew about. Still with these 2 Abrupt Decays in his hand. I wonder if he's too flush with removal. Brainstorm. Let's see what comes rolling off the top. Can't really get a good look at it. I see a Snapcaster Mage, a Brainstorm, and what looks like a Liliana of the Veil.
So Lily's actually pretty good at in a matchup like this, because she can come down and then your opponent's going to have to be forced to basically play everything at sorcery speed. And it makes the top deck war a lot better for you. That being said, she also can turn these Abrupt Decays into something because you can be discarding them.
Sure.
I don't know if he's going to want to be playing it here.
In that he doesn't have double black, it seems pretty unlikely.
He thinks he has an Underground Sea in hand. Oh, it's actually
There's a Volcanic Island, yeah.
Yeah, that's going to be rough.
Gonna cast a Deathrite. Deathrite, fantastic. Opportunity to gain life is not irrelevant.
It also changes the clock here.
Yes, and so I think Mike Shields are as down as they're going to get. Oh no, he still has a Force of Will in his hand. Charlie's not in a great spot here.
He has the Force of Will and that Snapcaster too.
Right.
And he's actually 1 land away from being able to do the classic where you're just hard casting Force of Wills.
Paying that alternate cost.
Right.
All right,
And
gonna see a price of progress. Lethal. Do you have a counterspell? As it turns out, he does.
You know,
Gonna cast Force of Will, exiling Brainstorm.
This happens enough in Legacy. We call them like the force checks, like the Belchers or the Ants. This was a force check. Okay, do you got it? All right, you'll go to 5. And we'll switch back to the top deck war.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes all you have to do is make them have it, right?
All right, and then he's going to follow it up with a Chain Lightning and a Fire Blast, and it looks like that's going to seal it.
You dead? Hey, are you dead yet?
He's thinking. He's thinking real hard. Yeah,
and that's it. All right, that finishes us off for our first semifinal match. We will get another match up as soon as possible. We'll be back.